Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. The World Cup draw has just happened. We now know who the majority of the teams that are going to be qualified for the World Cup in Qatar at the end of this year are going to be facing in what group. We just don't know where that will be hosted. And of course, there are still a few teams that are yet to qualify that will happen later on in the year. But we do know the majority of the teams and what group they will be in and who they'll be facing initially in the group stages of the World Cup in 2022. The road to Qatar really does kick up another gear from here. We're going to be going through each group, talking about it, who I might see qualifying and giving some predictions here and there. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you, please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things always and probably greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into the draw, because it was a draw that was hosted by Jermaine Genius. How the hell he got that gig, I have no idea. He was probably hoping that Tottenham would come out and probably win the whole thing or something. I don't know. But he hosted it. Alongside him were a few famous faces from the world of football alongside him. It was a long, drawn-out process, as it normally is in these kind of situations. Drawn out a lot longer than it probably should have been, but it was finally over. And then of course you got to the juicy bit, the groups, and they are looking pretty good overall. There are some really interesting groups that have been thrown at us, so without further ado, let's get into Group A to kick things off. Okay, so Group A consists of course, the host nation, Qatar. It's a formality that the host nation instantly gets put into pot one, and so therefore is instantly put into Group A to kick off the tournament. Of course, they will be hosting the first game of the tournament, so Qatar, host nation, go into it, qualified for the first time, obviously by default, by hosting it. Here they will be going into a draw that contains also Ecuador. Ecuador versus Qatar will be the first game to kick off World Cup 2022, so exciting stuff there. But the other two teams are interesting, because the other two teams that they threw in this group are the Netherlands and Senegal. Now, Netherlands, of course, we welcome back the Netherlands into a World Cup surrounding for the first time in a while. They were an interesting and an exciting watch in the European Championships of last year, of course, so they'll be intriguing to watch. And Senegal, the current AFCON winners. They have a few big name players in there, a few talented individuals that we all know from the Premier League, of course. Edouard Mendy in goal, Sadio Mane, of course, and even a couple outsiders that from other nations as well, such as Kalidou Koulibaly of Napoli, of course. So, really interesting one. You would expect the Netherlands and Senegal to go through, but it could be a very interesting group nonetheless. It's not exactly a given for any of those two teams in there to really progress. And maybe the host nation, Qatar, with obviously the sort of home advantage, so to speak, may spring a surprise here. But overall, I'm going for Netherlands and Senegal to qualify from Group A. Group B, and the one that I know a lot of people will be interested in, England, of course, came out in Group B almost instantly right off the bat in this draw. One of the favourites, you have to say, despite what many people may think of certain individuals in that team, and of course the manager, but you have to admit that they probably are one of the favourites and to be considered as to being one of the favourites going forward if they can get, obviously, their star players firing on all cylinders, the likes of Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, who tends to turn up in an England shirt recently, and obviously remains strong defensively, if that's possible, with having Harry Maguire there. But no, he does tend to play well for England because they play a different style to what Manchester United play. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, this one. They also will have to contend with the USA in their group. I believe that these two teams were drawn together in the 2010 World Cup as well. So, interesting coincidence there. Also in the group is Iran and either one of Scotland, Wales or Ukraine. So there's possibly going to be a UK sort of derby kind of thing in that group if Scotland or Wales do tend to qualify, because obviously there's still some qualifying to be done later on in the year and one of Scotland, Wales, or Ukraine will of course be going to Qatar, depending on obviously what happens later on down the line if it comes to that. Group overall should be very simple for England to navigate through. I think they've been given, apart from maybe USA being a pretty kind of difficult, tricky tie to navigate through from everyone that was considered for Pot B, of course. You know, it should be pretty simple for England to navigate through, all things considered. Could be some tricky ties in there at certain points, but England should have no problem. And then it's just a toss-up between who qualifies alongside them in second place. You would imagine Iran are there to make up the numbers, so it's between either USA and the other group to qualify from team to qualify from Europe. You'd expect the European team to qualify, but don't rule out USA entirely. It could be possible that the USA do manage to sneak in, depending on who obviously qualifies from that. So a little bit tricky to call this one just for obvious reasons, but England should sail through quite comfortably. Group C, game out the bat straight away with Argentina. Arguably one of the favourites for this year's World Cup. They are one of the form teams going into this tournament. They have been unbeaten in around about 3 years. They look collectively a much better team than what we've seen in previous years gone by. They're not relying so much on Lionel Messi so much, and have got other players that can take the baton wherever possible and try and help Messi rather than just look to him to try and help them through games. Of course, Messi still has a strong hold on this Argentina side, as he would, being arguably one of the best players to ever grace a football pitch. But he is now joined alongside him by capable players, and like I say, Argentina are looking a much more stronger unit than I think we've seen in previous years gone by. And maybe the current Copa America holders, because let's face it, Messi did drag them to that they did go on to win the final as a team. Maybe the Copa America holders may actually win the World Cup this year. Like I said, I think they're one of the favourites to do so, and I think with this probably being Messi's final chance at winning the World Cup, it is possible that they may all just band together to try and do it for Argentina. They're going to face some stiff competition along the way, but it is possible. Argentina should sail through this group. They are joined by Mexico, Poland, and Saudi Arabia. It's going to be a toss-up between Mexico and Poland as to who gets through. Don't rule out the Mexicans. They've got some pretty decent and pretty tricky players within their ranks. But Poland, of course, have that big marquee name of Robert Lewandowski leading them into battle in Qatar. So that's going to be interesting as well. He's never actually turned up, really, in a major tournament as Lewandowski. But you know, maybe this time it might be a bit different. Maybe the introduction of maybe Matty Cash at right back may change that as well. Poland do have some decent players within their ranks as well. They've got some pretty good youngsters coming through as well. So that might also be a platform for them to really shine. Toss up between Poland and Mexico as to who qualifies alongside Argentina. I would probably expect Poland just to nick it. Maybe they have a bit more firepower up front, especially with Lewandowski, whilst Saudi Arabia are there, like I say, to make up the numbers. And I'm sure that in whatever sweepstake I enter in, Saudi Arabia will probably be my team, as they were 4 years ago in Russia for the 2018 World Cup. So, yeah, Saudi Arabia there to make up numbers, but Argentina to qualify safely, and then I'm going to back Poland here. Group D instantly contains the holders of this competition going into it of France. They were the 2018 winners, of course, having stormed to victory and triumph over there in Russia. They've just simply got an incredible squad, haven't they? An absolute phenomenal squad, oozing with talent and depth right the way across the pitch. It's absolutely incredible. Of course, your eyes are instantly drawn to the youngster, the man known as Kylian Mbappe. There's a lot riding on where his future may lie club-wise, but as far as international football goes, he is probably, barring injury, of course, he's definitely going to be on the plane to Qatar when it comes to it in the winter. The only fear that you may have with France is they may suffer from the holder's curse. It's something that's been happening recently with World Cup winners that they faltered when it comes to defending their crown. In 2006, Italy won the World Cup. In 2010, they crashed out at the group stages. Spain won in 2010, they crashed out in the group stages of 2014. Germany won the 2014 World Cup and crashed out in the group stages in quite dramatic fashion in 2018. Could France fall victim to that kind of curse? Well, if it is, something will have to be said for Denmark, Tunisia, and then another intercontinental playoff between the United Arab Emirates, Australia, or Peru, because those are going to be the teams that France are going to have to come up against in their group. Obviously, Denmark, we all know about Denmark. They performed pretty well in the European Championships. Really banded together after obviously everything that happened there, and proved to be a very difficult side to beat. Tunisia, probably there to make up the numbers. United Arab Nations, Australia, Peru. You'd probably expect one of Peru or Australia to make it through there, so it's likely that one of them two will do it rather than the United Arab Nations. But going to be interesting, this one. You'd expect France to go through. You'd probably expect on the whole that Denmark probably progress as well, but it might also depend on who qualifies from, obviously, that playoff that's still to be played. But France, definitely considered one of the favourites, but just be wary of that possible winner's curse that has obviously plagued previous winners of this for the past several years and several tournaments. Group E will feature Spain, Germany, Japan, and either one of Costa Rica or New Zealand. Spain, obviously under Luis Enrique, play the Spain way, tiki-taka style of football. They're going to be spring no surprises in their tactical approach here. You just wonder whether or not Spain will have enough of a killer instinct up front in the final third to really go on and do some damage in the latter stages of this tournament. But again, it should not be overlooked that these are definitely a threat in this competition and may go on to win it for the first time since, of course, 2010. And it does throw up a big game, this one, because it throws up a massive European encounter between, obviously, Spain and Germany at some point. Germany, 2014 winners. This will be the first World Cup for Hansi Flick as part of the, obviously, nations team of Germany, having taken over from Joachim Löw after last year's Euros. So it's going to be a different looking Germany for the most part, full of different ideas that we've been used to in previous tournaments from the Germans. So that's going to be interesting as well to consider. Japan, we know about Japan for the most part. They constant figures in the World Cup. Tricky side, got some decent little players in there, here and there. Goals might be a difficult thing for them to come by, but again, they should be an interesting watch. And then between Costa Rica and New Zealand, again, toss of a coin, really. But you are expecting this one to be one of the more predictable groups, you'd imagine. You'd imagine that obviously Germany and Spain, regardless of which order it is to progress from the group stages here and to the knockout stages. Interesting fact though about New Zealand, they were the only team in the 2010 World Cup to actually be undefeated throughout that entire tournament. Of course, they only made it to the group stages and they only played the 3 games, but they were the only team to be unbeaten in that tournament. Interesting. Group F started with Belgium, it then went to Croatia, then Morocco, and then Canada. An interesting group ahead, this one. You always look at Belgium and you think that they are the dark horses. In every tournament, they always have this tag of being dark horses because they've got a great team. They've got a very good team, Belgium, but they can just never pass that mental block of getting anywhere further than like a semi-final stage or whatever it may be. They have to be, again, considered this season or this tournament as one of the favourites. The chances are, though, maybe they'll likely fall away again. Maybe, I think, with other teams that are in and around them, maybe as we get towards the final stages, maybe, again, they may just fall away. But if they can get Lukaku firing on all cylinders, if Kevin De Bruyne can be at his absolutely creative best, then, of course, they'll always have a chance going forward. And they've got a pretty decent setup behind them as well. Thibaut Courtois in goal, of course. and a few decent defenders here and there along the way as well. Could be interesting times for Belgium going into this. Roberto Martinez really needs to pull the rabbit out the bag here, you'd imagine, on his stay at the club, considering this is still, relatively speaking, Belgium's golden generation. You got Croatia in there as well, the 2018 runners-up. Likelihood is that they might qualify alongside Belgium in this group. They've always been known for having a strong midfield, and it's still going strong. Maybe getting a bit older now, but still going a bit strong. Croatia, they may fall away, obviously, once it gets past the group stages, but they are still to be considered as being a pretty decent squad, especially in the group stages. Morocco, they're to probably make up the numbers. Canada could be an interesting wild card. They obviously have qualified for this tournament for only their second time in their international history, 36 years after their debut in this tournament. One to watch maybe in this group is one Jonathan David of Canada, of course, plays in the French League. Highly rated, being looked at by several Premier League clubs. Could be one to watch going forward. But yes, from Group F, I'm imagining that both Belgium and Croatia will qualify here. Group G will feature the most successful team in World Cup history, the 5-time winners, Brazil. Always considered favourites, always in the conversation of winning every World Cup are Brazil, and rightfully so. And again, they have to be considered here. They have to be one of the favourites here because they have got a very good squad together, and they definitely have a strong chance of returning to the pinnacle of international football by making it 6-time World Cup winners Brazil in Qatar. There's big pressure on Neymar too. Obviously, a lot was expected of him at both club and international level, and so far he's not really delivered on that international stage yet. But of course, this could be his moment. There is big pressure on him to deliver, but there may not be as much in this tournament because I feel like Brazil have a bigger, more well-rounded squad, similar to what we were talking about earlier with Argentina and Lionel Messi, in the sense that Brazil have a much more rounded squad that can more help Neymar rather than look to him to kind of drive them to success. Keep Neymar fit, keep Neymar happy. Brazil will have obviously a better chance, but with the goalkeepers that they have, the defense they have, the midfield that is strong, and the flair and the typical Brazilian natural attacking instincts and everything that goes along with what makes it beautiful about being an attacking Brazilian player, they have a very strong chance in this tournament, and of course they will probably pass through the group with flying colours. Talking about their group, they are also joined by Switzerland, Serbia and Cameroon. Switzerland, of course, knocked out the current World Cup holders France in last year's Euros. Can be a tricky side to play against when their players turn up. Granit Xhaka. But, you know, they are a pretty tricky side to navigate through. They've got some tricky players, some well-known players as well, like Xherdan Shaqiri, Granit Xhaka, like I mentioned. Still a strong squad, still a difficult squad. Can obviously progress alongside Brazil. I think they're going to face some stiff competition from Serbia. Serbia and Cameroon. It could be a toss-up between all three as to which one gets through. Don't completely discount Cameroon. They could shock a few people. You would expect Switzerland. I've just got a sneaky feeling about Serbia. I've just got a sneaky feeling that maybe if Serbia can find some goals, maybe they can progress alongside Brazil in the group stage. And finally, Group H will feature Portugal, Uruguay, South Korea and Ghana. Could this obviously be the final World Cup for one Cristiano Ronaldo? We talked about it with Messi, of course. It could be his final World Cup as well. Could it also be Ronaldo's final tournament? Of course, he once again steals the spotlight for Portugal. But don't be fooled, because this Portugal side are actually very decent beyond Ronaldo. You scratch the surface of Ronaldo, you look beyond that. Very decent squad indeed. You look at their defence, maybe not the best. Their defence may be a bit meh. But you look at the other players that are around them, the likes of Bruno Fernandes, of course, Diogo Jota, who's having an incredible season for Liverpool. You look at Renato Sanchez, who just seems to randomly turn up on the international stage and play very well, along with other players, of course. Portugal could be considered one of the dark horses in this. I actually think they've got a very good outside chance of maybe going on to World Cup glory this year. They've just got to play, well, they've just got to be a bit more ruthless in front of goal. They've got to tee up. They're not going to just basically hold all their hopes on Ronaldo so much. They have got other players, like I say, particularly in the attacking third, that can also carry the burden of scoring their goals. But yes, I think they have a very decent squad, very good chance. They should qualify from this. And then it's about who qualifies with them. Uruguay, South Korea, or Ghana. Now, Ghana may not be the same side that they were several years ago when they had the likes of Asamoah Gyan, for example. We all remember what happened in the 2010 World Cup when it came to them against Uruguay. So there's a bit of narrative there, actually, that revenge could be on the cards for Ghana against Uruguay following that whole Luis Suarez incident in the, obviously, group stages of what was that tournament back in 2010 in South Africa. So there's that to consider. South Korea, we all know about Son Heung-min. Obviously, he's going to be the poster boy for this. Could spring up a surprise. They did beat Germany in the group stages 4 years ago to knock Germany out of that tournament. Could be interesting for South Korea. Uruguay, though, I don't know a lot about Uruguay. I don't really follow them religiously. But from what I've heard, pretty decent squad they've got building up there. They've still got some veterans in there, the likes of Luis Suarez and Edinson Cavani, of course. They've got some veterans up front, but they realised that there are more players with more legs, shall we say, behind them in the midfield area. They've got pretty decent squad building up from what I've seen and from what I've heard and from what I've read. So they could be a bit of a surprise package in this tournament and definitely one to look out for. But Portugal to make it through. Uruguay versus Ghana should be interesting with that whole narrative. But I'm going to back Uruguay just because I think they've got a bit more of a killer instinct up front with the veterans of Suarez and Cavani to get through as well. Overall, it should be an interesting tournament. Of course, we still don't know the entirety of the 32 teams because there's still some qualifiers left. But it should be a very interesting tournament. Again, there's the human rights issues over in Qatar. That's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds and how the players kind of get their message across. I know that obviously a lot of the England players, Harry Kane, Jordan Henderson, have been talking about how they're going to conduct themselves and going to look at the best ways to conduct themselves whilst they're out there. Going to be interesting. It's also going to be interesting as well because obviously it's not going to be the typical kind of summer tournament that we're all looking for, that we all are used to. They had to obviously move it to the winter for health reasons and for temperature and seasonal reasons. So that's also going to be an interesting factor to take in as well. Going to disrupt club seasons as well. It's going to be interesting on that level. And from early on, like I said, I think Portugal are dark horses. I think Belgium could do something in this tournament, maybe a little bit better than what they have in previous tournaments. I think the top three favourites for me are Argentina, Brazil, and I think you have to consider England, as much as I don't think that they'll do it, because I think they'll fall away again right when it matters most in the final, and I think that maybe Argentina and Brazil are actually better than them. I do think they're the three favourites. Like I say, Portugal are my dark horses, but England, Argentina and Brazil are definitely my three favourites at this early stage. And probably will change when obviously we get closer to it and maybe the squads are announced, but I'm going to go for those three and my outsiders of Portugal. But of course, as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of the World Cup draw that has just taken place with all of the group stages that are happening? Who are your favourites to win the groups, qualify from the groups? And overall, who do you actually see winning the World Cup in Qatar in 2022? What are your early predictions on that. I'd love to know your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, down below in the comment section, because I'm sure it'll make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see and speak to you all again soon in another video.